All right. So, yeah, I've been teaching socioeconomic approach to management for 25 years, including going to France for 20 years. And yes, when she was a young girl, I taught her her first socioeconomic class to Amandine
Oh,
Savall. But later on, a few years ago, she taught me the intricacies of socioeconomic approach. So she's gone a long ways. But today we're going to show you what it's all about and why it's appropriate to coaching, why it's appropriate to consulting, and I'm going to run through it all for you. So I hope you
yay.
really enjoy it. And I'm going to just mention a few things about it before I show a couple of slides. Uh, so let me see if I can find my slides, and we'll do that. So Grace Ann and I were up this morning riding our horses, and it's 9 o'clock in the morning here in Las Cruces, different time zones for you all, and we made it back here in time. So let me tell you a little bit about what is SEAM, S-E-A-M. Stands for the Socioeconomic Approach to Management, and right now Amandine Savall is inheriting, taking over. The baton is being passed to her for the SEAM empire. They've done over 2,300 consultations to major organizations around the world. Their minimum consultation is an agreement for 3 years. It also contains an agreement that I hope you would like that nobody gets laid off. They just get reassigned to new jobs in the same organization. Uh, so Amandine Savall has two wonderful children. Maybe Grace Ann will help me out with their names. Do you remember their names, Grace Ann?
Um, Matilda, I think.
Yeah, Matilda and the little boy.
Was it was it Arturo?
No, it's a
No, I
little
don't
bit
think
different
so.
than that. That'll be a quiz question on our an exam today, you know. We'll try to show you that. Let me show you a picture of them. Let's see if I can do share. Okay. I know share is in here somewhere. Yeah, I want to show you these pictures because they're adorable. Can you see that picture of the two children and Amandine?
Ah, yes.
I had to take it off of her LinkedIn, Facebook accounts or something. Aren't they beautiful? We were having dinner with them in Lyon, France, earlier this year when they celebrated the 50th anniversary of the socioeconomic approach. Amandine is also the editor for the business storytelling of socioeconomics. And I'm going to return to that point in a minute and tell you all about it. She It's a wonderful volume, and she's also author of a book called Agile, Becoming Agile, with Christopher Worley, Veronique Zardet, Mark Bonnet. So that's that's a really popular book. I used it in teaching my undergraduate classes. That would be the book they read because it's like a airport book, really good. And then I would have the hidden cost book for the graduate students. So uh, the theme of her book is about uh, how the socioeconomic approach to management builds adaptability and cultivating true organizational agility. So I know agility is a very popular topic. It's not just about a bunch of tools you use, but it's going deep and it requires the kind of coaching and consulting we all love. Uh, One of them is the root cause diagnosis that I'll show you in a minute. And it's actually a pretty simple thing to do as a coach or consultant to, and you can apply your other skills in coaching and consulting with it. So I'll show you how that works. I believe if my undergrads at New Mexico State University could do it, you can do it too. Now, the person that Ahmadine Savall is taking over for is Henri Savall. And he's just a wonderful scientist. He was born in 1941, so he's older than me. He's a French economist and scholar that looked at the socio-technical aspects of organizational development and change and decided that it needed some economics and needed a little bit of accounting. So he focused on converting what he calls hidden costs, insufficiencies, ineffectivenesses resulting from the organizations having certain dysfunctions in their system, the way they treat people in particular. And so SEAM tries to integrate a rigorous intervention with very scientific data. So he's a real scientist. He's not a pretend scientist. I'll show you some of these in the slide, but I wanted to give you an overview first. So in the socioeconomic approach, the main thing that consultants and coaches who want to dip their toes into this is probably to do little projects in small groups, small teams across an organization where you have those people diagnose, what's going wrong and what can we do about it, propose a project to their board of directors or executive group, get approval, implement it, say in 3, 6 weeks, a few months, and stop and evaluate it. Now, if it produced uh, controls on hidden cost, if it enhanced revenue streams, uh, according to this methodology in SEAM, you share the rewards with your people. So if you're going to make $1 billion out of this in the next 3 years, you share 100 grand with that team, let's say. Now, American management is not into sharing, and so that has been a tough sell in the United States, but it is happening. Uh, the other thing that is a tool I'll show you in a second is a four-leaf clover. You'll see it over and over again in my presentation. And it's a very simple way to understand uh, what are the working conditions of an organization. You can do that anyway as a coach and as a consultant, all right? And, do people have the necessary tools? Do they have a desk? Do they have an actual chair with all the wheels on it? Things like that. Then we look at the work organization. Is it set up where a person is doing their job and they can express ideas to upper management and be listened to? Is it is it the kind of work organization that rewards suggestions, projects, innovations from their people? So pretty basic stuff. Then it's all about communication, coordination, right? Cooperation. We call them the three C's: communication, coordination, cooperation. So, and that's going to bring us all in there from GrowthOD because we're all about whether you're a coach, a communication, whether you're into Boje, axiogenics. It's all about helping the communication out with yourself, with others in the organization, and all your relationships. So again, that's a very good crossover of SEAM with what we're doing. Uh, the next thing is time management. It's just observing how are people managing their time. Most small businesses that I worked with, as an example, the executive or the owner is too busy putting out fires to do their own job. And they think they're going to save a dime by filling in for somebody who's absent or sick or whatever. Um, and that's just not a good idea. As you know, as consultants and coaches, you are trying to save a dime and spending $1,000. you know, by trying to do it yourself and not doing your job. Meanwhile, your job doesn't get handled. The next thing is the training. They look at training. So coaches and consultants, I know you're also trainers, and we look at where is the training going to. Most organizations that are floundering and need turnaround or help, their training resources are going to the people who don't need it, you know, like their executives or something. And it's not going to the people who need it, right? So I know in Axiogenics, you asked this question about, what is the one thing I can do that would be valuable, right? We asked that question. Well, one thing to do in training is to make sure the training is going to the people that need it and not just to the people who don't. So that's a big one. These are all real important. The last one they look at just going in as a coach and consultant, and they'll spend a lot of time, maybe as much as 3 months, just observing and looking before they have that meeting with the board of directors and the executive group that says, hey, we notice your strategic planning isn't very strategic and isn't really happening with you all. And we think it's because you're spending a lot of time making up for the training that's not happening in your organization. The time management is off. Your time is spent putting out fires. The communication is has some issues. Your work organization design, your working conditions. So they go through those 6 elements with examples of sort of what people are saying without identifying a particular person, but saying, okay, your technicians are saying you got the old software, it's not updated, they're not keeping up with the times, it's hard to compete, those sorts of things. And they'll lay that out for them, but they'll also say, because you're doing it that way, your lost revenue, right? Your slip in the market share, right? Let's say our calculations are it's 250,000 a year. So you're losing $250,000 that you could otherwise have. And that's the big selling point for their coaching and consulting with SEAM because they'll say, we will pay for ourselves within 3 months, you know? So the money you spend on our coaching and consulting, you'll get it back in 3 months. Now, if you want the big changes, that'll take a year, but you get the big changes when we get you back doing strategy, when we play with some of the organizational conditions and structures, and you get back to be managing the whole enterprise instead of picking up fires. So that's a little bit about it. Grace Ann, you want to say something?
A few people added in late. I'm not sure what emails you sent out ahead of this presentation, but I thought to just give an overview of where
Sure,
you're going with this.
sure.
And
Let
and
me
the
do that.
reason that Amandine couldn't be here, the thing that's really unique about SEAM is that Henri, as a economist accountant, really embraced qualitative methods equally with the quantitative one. And that's what we have seen is that SEAM has done better than anyone that we've seen do this. Combine, uh, as Henri would say, if it's not on the balance sheet, it's not in the organization.
Thank you,
So
Grace Ann. Let me show you this slide here, and uh, this will kind of give you an overview. Yes, Almandine Savall was going to be here today. Don't worry, she's coming in September. It's all okay. She's in good health, but she had to go to another country. I mean, they got enterprises happening in SEAM all across the world. So, and she's running the show. Oh, here you see the four-leaf clover. And if you know this, you know about 80% of what you need if you don't want to be a SEAM expert, but you want to just apply it. In the top part of the four-leaf clover, you'll see the 6 things I was just going over if you arrived just now. What are the working conditions in the organization? Number 2, What's the work organization? Is it a total system? Is it half a system? Is it hierarchical? Is it, you got a bully leader at the top and everybody reports? What kind of work organization is it? Then we look at the three C's: communication, coordination, cooperation. Is it cooperative? Are they coordinating with each other? Is the communication clear and coherent? Or is it like catch as catch can? What's the time management? Are people managing their time? Are the executives managing their time, doing executive stuff? Or are they doing everybody else's stuff and not doing their own stuff? Do you have a lot of people in millennial turnover, for example? And because of the turnover, there's certain vacancies, so other people are filling in. Well, you might think, oh, that's saving me money. I got less salary going up. But no, that's not true because your functions are not being handled. Your revenues are going to drop. Your costs are going to go up in other areas. So it's a big deal. Then they look at training. Are the people needing training getting the training? And finally, they'll say, what's the strategic implementation? Is it being implemented? Is it gathering dust on a shelf somewhere? Did the former CEO have one, but this group doesn't? Are they just moving in different directions? They don't have a steady course. All those kind of issues. And the six, what we call dysfunctions. Every organization has one of those. Some of them have all six of them. If they're coming to you for a coaching and consulting, you can bet they probably got all six. If they were humming along, everything was great, would they come to you? Hell no. They're not going to spend the money. So if they come to me, and I'll show you a couple of examples of things I've done, they got major issues. You see some structures. So we look at physical structure, technical on the left leaf, organizational structures, the demographics, the mental structures. And that's something that we do in our coaching, right? With Vanessa and Lucero, right? And Olivia. I know we're all trained to work with those mental structures, but I think also Harvey and Peter, right? And they are working with the mental structures and what they do. And so is Boje. So a lot of people working with mental structures. So I just want to point that out. Then we have behaviors at different levels. You got individual levels, work group levels, professions, and I'll show you an example of that coming up here. You got pressure groups. In Europe, you have unions. United States, you may have some unions, but they're not as strong as they once were. You have other kind of pressure groups, environmentalists, right? People who want customer service are pressuring. Then you have kind of collective behaviors, like you're in an industry, you're in a city, you're in a community, that's more collective. So the bottom leaf of the four-leaf clover, and this is their overall model of SEAM. When you say SEAM, anybody that's been to SEAM training can recite every element of the four-leaf clover. It's like you got to have that down. And then you have hidden costs, like who's absent? We got injuries? Do we have staff turnover? We talked about millennial turnover. That's a big issue these days. Millennials are 70% of the workforces globally. Then we have non-quality. Quality is not happening in the products or services. Do you have a productivity gap? Like you can't get the production out you need to serve the clients you have. So, or you're productive, but it's not very efficient. And that needs to be looked at. Okay, so take the four-leaf clover, treat it as a living system, right? And I'll look at our model, that tree on the left, right, that glows. What's important is the roots. Same thing in socioeconomic. They have their roots. Uh, it starts with excess salary. If you're paying excess salary, right, to people, it may be because you're not filling all the positions, right? Like millennial turnover, for example. If you're paying a lot of overtime to people, again, maybe you're not distributing the tasks well across the organization. If you're overconsumption of resources, you're wasting a lot of materials, you're wasting a lot of preparations. I know I just spent a week doing 500 versions of my new quiz for mindfulness. And that's a lot of consumption of my resources. Maybe I could have hired somebody to do that in 20 hours. You know what I mean? But I'm tenacious. I'm stubborn. I'm going to do it myself. I'm like, okay, enough of that. So non-production. Then you have non-production means you're not producing the way you need to produce to be an organization that counts. All right, non-creation of potential. This is the big thing that connects GrowthOD, all of you that are here care about creation of human potential. We don't like to see human potential wasted. This is the number one thing that Henri Savall, Amandine Savall, Veronique, Amandine's mother, Veronique Zardet, Mark Bonnet, their chief operating officer, now retiring. All of those people drummed into my head for 25 years. David, what's this about, SEAM? It's about developing human potential, Henri. Okay, now you got that point. Took you 10 years, David, but you understand that now. Yes, I do, Henri. So it's how do you develop human potential? Well, first of all, you don't lay them off when you're reorganizing. That doesn't develop anybody. Second, you make sure the training goes to the right place, right? You look at the time management, you do all those work organization things, and you have those project teams. I'm going to talk about project teams in a minute. And that's where you're really developing the human potential of people. And that's the engine of SEAM. That's the one that gets all the things done. You think it's at the executive level, they're chattering in the boardroom and stuff? I'm sorry, that ain't it. It's developing the human potential throughout the whole system. Let's look at the last one. If you don't do these things, you got risks. If you got injuries, you got risks of lawsuits, workers' comps. If you got the wrong kind of treatment of your millennials, you're risking such high turnover that your productivity and quality drops, for example. Let's go through the next one. Once you understand the four-leaf clover, the next big thing is this diagram. It's called the DPIE. It stands for diagnose, project, implementation, evaluation. I'll go through it again. Diagnose, project, implementation, evaluation. So first thing, you get a team together, they diagnose all the stuff that's going wrong. I just showed you in the four-leaf clover and the roots because they're trained in it. That's happening in the first few weeks. Developing a project to deal with it is the P. I, implementing the project in short order, like in a few weeks, a few months. Not going to take years and forever about it. It's a project. It has a terminal date. And then it's evaluated by your executive team, and they say, yeah, this was a really good use of your time, or this was terrible. Don't ever do this again. Do something else. Come up with another project. But if it comes up and it's saving the company money, it's developing our new revenue stream, rewards are shared. Okay, we'll talk about that in a minute, whether that agrees with your philosophy. I'm going to try the screen share, see if that works and you can see it. All right. What's the difference between SEAM and traditional organizational development? Let's go back and look at that again. All right. Traditional OD, the focus is on symptoms, visible problems, get those symptoms out of the way by the quarterly report. In SEAM and GrowthOD, it's about root cause, hidden costs. And the intervention model in traditional is often top down, very generic, do the tools we've been doing for 50 years. In SEAM and GrowthOD, it's participatory, a lot of participation, it's modular, specifically tailored. So when you have the DPIE groups going out, they're going out in different parts of the organization to bring it along as an example of modular. The data style in traditional OD is quantitative, maybe some surveys, maybe some HR metrics that you look at. Here, it's qualitative. We get the stories from the people all over the organization, and we ask a simple question. Hey, how often does that occur here? What do you think it costs? And we write it down. I'll show you what we do with that in a minute. The change process in traditional OD is linear, not all OD, okay? A lot of OD is pretty cool, but you have fixed programs, everything's a nail, and your program's always a hammer. The DPIE, again, it's diagnose, project, implementation, evaluation. Those short-term projects create a spiral of transformation, and it's very good. Now, you've also heard of diagnose, plan, act, evaluate. So it's similar use of those letters. Role of the story is very peripheral in traditional OD. Yeah, there's a story. I can change your organization. I'm a good consultant. I'm good at this. Here's all the things I've done in the past. But here, story is a central tool for healing. That's why it's relevant to consulting. The goal is performance improvement in traditional OD, but in GrowthOD and SEAM, we want sustainable healing, renewed purpose, flourishing systems, and what's the number one thing? Developing human potential. Now, this will make you dizzy, but I want to show you something important here. When you have SEAM and you get into the next level of it, not just what's the four-leaf clover, but I'm going to show you a couple of things that are next level. You learn to observe and diagnose, number one, with your DPIE's implementation. But then you do conceptualization. You form hypotheses for project planning in DPIE groups. Then you model it. Modelization is what Henri's term, and Veronique and Amandine. You develop general theories about what's going on. That allows us to do what David Trefimo in auxiliary assumption method is one of our pillars, talks about pinning down your concepts, pinning down your models and your theories. So you have theory assumptions. Then you go experiment and you have assumptions about what's testable and what you're doing. So David Trefimo is in 2, 3, and 4. And then you evaluate your experiment data. So every project team in DPIE is an experiment to see if you can lower hidden cost, right? Create better revenue streams than you got going now, and unleash human potential, those three things. And then 7, you're formulating, do the next mirror effect meeting. I didn't tell you what mirror effect is. I'll pause and tell you now. The mirror effect meeting is when we gather everybody together and a couple of different phases in SEAM implementation. One, after we've done the diagnosis as a consultant, as a SEAM coach, we diagnose. Then we have a mirror effect meeting with the board and the executives. So if a small organization would be the owner and their managers. And we say, okay, here's what stories are going on and they're important to listen to. It's qualitative, yes, but here's what it's costing you. We've added up the numbers. We worked it out with your own people and sometimes talking to you what it costs for all these things to happen that are going south. And then here's the total package. And often in a major corporation, that package of what they can expect in reclaiming hidden costs, transforming and recycling those into revenue streams is going to be 750,000 to several million. Now, the short-term delivery in 3 months is going to be what we can turn around quickly with those DPIE groups and implementation. So I hope that's clear. Is there any questions at this point? I've given you a lot of material. I want to maybe pause and interact a little bit before I get back to the Amandine story. Okay, well, you're all breathless. Oh, there's
I
Olivia.
have,
Oh,
let me see if I can.
was Dr. Wanda, do you want to ask a question?
No, you go ahead, Olivia. I'll go after
Oh,
you.
And then we'll do
okay.
Ken Long. Go ahead.
Yeah. Do you have, do you rely on the company to provide what it's costing, or do you already have a lot of data around what things might be costing that you offer
Oh,
to them? And is it kind
beautiful
of a
question.
compromise?
Beautiful question. No, we don't rely on the company. Here's the reason why. In
Mhm.
SEAM, we believe that the reporting systems are structured in a way for those quarterly reports, and they don't tap into the hidden costs. So more than 50% of your cost structures are hidden. If you know if you've done some accounting, and I know several of you have, we do activity-based costing. So we look at an activity, that's the observation thing we're doing in the first month in particular as SEAM consultants and coaches. We're interviewing people, we're hanging out at meetings, we're watching, observing, they know what we're doing there. Hey, we're building the trust stuff, it takes time. But what we're trying to figure out is where are these costs that aren't on the reports. They're not on the annual report or the quarterly report. Those they already know about, but it's not the ones we're going to change. It'll have an impact on those reports, you understand? But they're the deep root ones, not the ones that you see on the surface. So really good question. Thank you for that. Let me ask Ken Long. Ken Long knows
Yeah,
socioeconomics. He knows the same people. Yeah. What's your question?
in 3 sentences, explain why this is different than traditional OD approaches. So,
Okay. One, we're diving into the hidden costs that aren't on your regular accounting reports that executives are making decisions on. Number two, right? We are recycling those hidden costs into developing revenue streams with implementation of these small groups I call DPIE. Number three, we are unleashing human potential in a major way because this is about democratizing an organization. Now, does that happen overnight or in the first year? No. It's going to take time before executives used to having the reins and being micromanagers to let it loose and trust people in their organization. It's going to
And
take time.
could I add something to that?
Oh, absolutely, Grace Ann.
So the other thing that really distinguishes SEAM that we were so impressed with from the first time we met them, they do ethnographic interviews with many people, not a small 10% sample. They'll do half or more of the employees, and they sit down personally and handwrite notes on what that person has said.
Yeah.
And so their data, it's not a questionnaire. It's, there's a deep understanding that's passed between the interviewer and the employees.
But tell them the other part, Grace Ann. Do they use tape recorders?
I don't think so. They might. I don't know. Do they?
No, they take hand notes. It's verbatim note taking, Grace Ann.
I think I mentioned that they take notes.
Oh yeah, I missed that part. I was listening closely enough. Let's turn to Dr. Wanda.
I was excited when I saw this, and I'm glad I could be here because life has just been hectic. But I took Henri's um conference class, and I have his book.
Is that
Um,
that the hidden cost book?
yeah, and
I'll hold it up.
his daughter actually gave it to me,
Whoa.
and and I was like, oh, okay. And it's very applicable to what I'm teaching research methods because I find myself in a coaching profile teaching a capstone course. Because you're dealing with, and I hate to use this term, we're dealing with a lot of arrogance because when I teach the students, many of them are already managers. in tenure positions, 20 to 26 years, and they just think they have all the answers.
You notice that, did you?
Yeah, and I'm sure some of you have dealt with that. And as a coach, um, I was mentored by a coach that she was so dang good. She would give $400,000 a year executives back their check. And she would tell them, when you get your attitude together, you come see me. She
That's
was a
good.
retired Air Force spouse. And I was like, "Ooh, Jerry, something." Now, I haven't gone to that extent, but I'm beginning to understand, now that I'm full faculty rank, that I really have to deal with that persona in a professional way. So I wanted to add that.
Oh, beautiful.
I
Beautiful.
also have releasing the untapped potential of enterprises through socioeconomic management, and that was what the workshop was called.
Hmm.
So I was really excited to go back to this information, and I keep everything, all my OD stuff in my notebook so I can find it. And lastly, sometimes I struggle with the correct terminology to be using. I noticed David was using diagnosis. Sometimes I hear assessment,
Yeah.
sometimes I hear prescriptive. So I just wanted to get a little bit more insight. What
Oh,
what
sure.
is the best terminology for me to be using as
Okay.
I'm teaching?
Stick with DPI. Diagnostic,
Okay.
diagnostics is the D. Project,
D. Oh,
you can add project planning if you want. Project planning.
okay.
And then implementing it in short order. And then evaluation of the results. So you're going to collect qualitative, quantitative, even financial data if you can, and get all that into the executive committee, whoever's in charge out there. And
Mm-hmm.
this is what we did. What do you think? And they say, well, you didn't
Mm-hmm.
account for that. You didn't go back to the drawing board. Or they'll say, yeah, wow, we're really impressed. So that's
Mm-hmm.
it. Really good. I use that hidden cost book for the graduate students. And let me just
Mm-hmm.
situate a point before I go to Carol. Um, when I've been teaching this for 25 years at the university, New Mexico State University, um, and I also went to France and I would teach it to the French students too, because that's how we paid for our trips for the first 20 years. Um, we do teaching for a week or two and we go to the conferences for SEAM. Here's what I noticed, particularly in American group. I would bring, you all know George Mendoza? He's one of us, right? He's not here today, but he just got back from Albuquerque. He's giving the speeches up there. Okay, if you know George, I would have George come in and for half an hour, he would explain what's going on, what he needs, what his background is, everything like that. Then I would say to the students in the class, like 35 students, I'd say, write down what are the working conditions, work organizations, the three C's, the training, the time management, and his strategy. Write it all down for me. And you know what I would see? A bunch of blank papers because they don't listen. The number one thing you learn
Mm.
from Henri Savall is use your ears and write it down. So I would have my notes while George was talking, and I would read to them, okay, George Mendoza, what's the work organization issue? He doesn't verify and his people that he's working with that they're actually doing the things he says, so he makes deals where he loses money on speaking engagements, etc., and books, and so that's the number one thing. On working conditions, he works out of home, but they keep trying to steal the home out from under him by these con artists filing these deed claims to his house. So he's busy putting that out, and then he's got people trying to steal his identity. So that's the working conditions of George Mendoza. Then three C's. I think he's a very effective public speaker and motivational speaker. I have high marks on that. If you look at time management, a lot of time is spent on trying to go for the big deal, the $3 million movie, the new book deal, but not doing the little steps necessary to have success. So I go down the line. If you listen to a half hour of George, you get all of those things. If you're any kind of a coach or consultant, you get that. If you're an MBA student or an undergrad, MBA students in particular, head full, can't put anything new in the head. And you say, what do we do? I think George needs a brochure. He needs a new website. I'm going, are you mental? Did you not listen to what George was saying? And you can bring George in 3 times during the term, assign a project team to work with him over the course of the semester. You know what you're going to find 9 times out of 10 that project group, that DPIE group supposedly did? A new website design, another brochure, a slogan. Is that what George needs? Is that the guy is legally blind? Get a clue. I'm going to go to Carol now. I got off my horse, but I just say, listen. I don't want to make the point. If you ain't listening, you ain't a coach. If you ain't listening, you're not a consultant. You're hitting everything with a hammer, and you're just no better than my MBA students, some of whom were very good. 1 out of 1,000. Carol.
I don't know that I can ask my question anymore. It seems so simplistic.
No, simple questions are good questions. Simple listening is a beautiful skill in higher education.
Well, that's my issue. All this resonates so much with me for my 25 years in traditional corporate and with MBA students. But at this point, the focus for me and others is very much on having impact. And we're doing more work in society and particularly in higher ed, which I think is the most difficult thing to move, maybe government. How does this apply when they don't have any interest, ability, experience, fill in the blanks of activity-based accounting and costs that are buried and negotiating the way you say it'll be a loss leader, which makes a lot of sense in corporate, I don't think is listened to.
Oh, I agree. I'll give you some examples. If let me go back to the slide, but let me give you a quick one here. At our university, we have a lot of lawsuits. They're happening every year, and it's because that 4-leaf clover isn't being adhered to. And the other thing that's happening, instead of using the human potential of faculty who have degrees in marketing, management, organizational change, information systems, do you think they rely on faculty to work on their organization? Hell no. They go hire somebody from El Paso to come on in and not even talk to us. Go through, what do they go through? They get out the spreadsheets of the quarterly reports, the annual report. They analyze that in their spreadsheet. They have a meeting with the executives. What are they doing? Are they getting at hidden costs? Are they getting at human potential? Are they listening? No, no, no. So that's let me show you an example, and I think you'll appreciate it. At least I hope so. All right, let's see. Let's see. Are you seeing the slide?
Yes.
Okay. Let me go forward here. This one. Okay. This is another drawing of the 4-leaf clover. I think it's a nice clear one. It's in the Encyclopedia Business Storytelling of Socioeconomics. So I made a photo of it today. Let me skip that one. Okay, hidden costs. What are we doing here? Over 50% of business costs are hidden from accounting reports. 40% are buried under trauma memories, which is why what we do here in GrowthOD is real important. Stuck thoughts, etc. Not just purview, by the way, but all the pillars. So there's a disconnection from the organization's story and the values, right? And including the net value that Axiogenics is so famous for. Millennials often seek purpose-driven work environments and they're not finding it. Lack of communication, talked about that. Burnout, misalignment, unprocessed traumas. If you're in a university, there's so much unprocessed traumas. When I came as a department head at New Mexico State, people crying in their office or yelling and screaming about the way they were mistreated. So hidden costs, millennial turnover. So let's say you have a new hire, training issue because your millennials are leaving. You're getting new employees up to speed. That means your productivity, your quality is down. People are moving from their jobs to help the new people. The average cost of training for bringing in a new millennials, $1,252 per year, right? And then you have wasted investment if the new hire, that millennial, leaves quickly, not finding the kind of work organization that they want. So let's take that figure. They're spending $1,252. Where does it go when I'm keeping notes? I put it right here. All right. There's turnover and there's excess time. Also, I could put notes across there under overcompensation because we have to pay other people to do the job the millennial can't do. Non-production, there's a cost in that. When the millennials aren't up to speed or they've left, you're not creating human potential. If you're having that turnover, you can add up all the hidden costs and there's a certain risk to your organization. So now the university example, Carol. This is my own university. This is my own analysis a few years ago. I found a total of $15 million that they could recover. That's all of the things added together, not just risks in that column. So I looked at qualitative examples. People left and we weren't replaced. High-paid administrators and faculty were being micromanaged. More health claims from stress of the overwork in departments because they were understaffed by 50 to 70% in many of the departments, including my own. Less qualified people, right, with no result, with weaker results. So they're getting rid of older faculty, hiring younger ones, putting them on contract, not getting the results, and they think that's going to turn things around. Productivity varies, right? So I could go through this whole thing, but I'm not going to. You can download the slides yourself at GrowthOD that I'm presenting today. But I just wanted to show you. I presented this to the provost, president, some of the trustees, and they just hired somebody from El Paso. Maybe it's a little complex if you're looking at work organizations, right? The neglected training, the strategic implementation. I just want this to be clear that it's interrelated. One of my doctoral students, Yue Kai Hillen, produces this. She's works in the East Coast. And she just does that to show me that she's tracking all of these things, like working conditions. She's tracking 6 of them in that column, work organization, 1 of them. They're interrelated over to strategic implementation. You see where all the arrows are going and they affect, that's another version. This is expert knowledge I'm doing right now. I don't expect you to like, wow, I understand that, David. No, you don't understand it. But I just want to show you the interrelationships of things that are so simple in the 4-leaf clover, but need to be developed in training. We train the people we coach and consult in SEAM. We train their internal consultants. We train their executives. We train the DPIE team. There's a whole lot of training going on when you take us on. Olivia, go ahead.
Hi, I'm so tempted to ask a question about what you just showed, but I won't. But I wanted to ask
Go
you.
ahead. I could bring it up. I mean,
Well, I just was curious if they're using statistical correlations to come up with where to point the arrows, or if
Yeah,
they're
that's a good question. Yui Kai, um, Mark Hillen, they were both our doctoral students at New Mexico State University. This is the one in 1,000 good ones that went ahead and learned SEAM and implemented it. Now they took David Trefimo's courses, so naturally they're aware of auxiliary assumptions, and they may not know the net gain solutions that came a little bit later in David Trefimo's work, but believe me, they know what you're talking about.
So my original question is, I'm not really good at taking notes while I'm listening to somebody, and oftentimes I can't even read my own writing. So given that, what do you see is going to be possibly an advantage or different, or maybe a disadvantage of AI being able to take things, and could that also,
Okay.
could we train it to analyze some of this stuff?
Okay, most of you are going to ignore my advice anyway. I'm aware of that. Okay, but Grace Ann and I'll ask Grace Ann to respond. We've learned to be in a meeting and have our notebook and do writing in the notebook. And what happens, what I find what happens, and you can do your own method, I'm not here to impose it, is just they will slow down and wait for me to write, and then they'll give me the next thing. And then they'll say, "Did you get that?" And I say, "Yeah, yeah, I think I did. Let me read it back to you." You know, and so they're
Okay.
happy that I'm actually paying attention to them. Now, if I do it in an AI, they're going like, "Okay, the person was here. There was a recording. They sent it off to India to be transcribed. Then they gave it to the AI to analyze. Did that consultant even hear me?" You know, that's the bond we're trying to make. We listen, we take notes. If you come back to us, we can understand your vocabulary and what you said. And it's us doing the processing here with you. So yeah, I asked my AI yesterday, I said, fix this up here, and I want at least a 64 gigabyte solution on this thing. I don't want you to hand me another 10 gigabyte one when we've already done the 60 gigabyte quiz. You know what it did? It created gibberish in 64K by repeating the same thing like 20 times. This would be so I'd be happy with it. And I said, you think I'm happy with this? You think you just trashed the program that was working? You understand this, Doug? They just trashed the program that's working, and now I got this junk program, and I got to go back 3 steps to find the one that was working. You understand? Yeah, Ken, go ahead, and then we'll do Wanda.
I,
Wanda, see, I just saw Ken's hand moving.
yeah, so you are claiming that to genuinely listen, the consultant has to do things. If I am the one receiving your consulting, what can I see in you that lets me know that you are listening to my unique position that allows me to place trust in you and the things that you're going to advise me to do? How do I know that you, the consultant, are listening? Therefore, what distinguishes a SEAM consultant from an OD survey taker?
Oh, that's a beautiful question. Um, I've designed a lot of surveys. I was in a doctoral program and I did the grunt work at UCLA when people were on the faculty wanted survey results analyzed. Yeah. Um, so to quote David Trefimo, you have assumptions you're making about this survey that it's somehow connected to reality, right? I'm saying if I'm listening to you, Ken, and trying to understand what you're saying, and I'm taking notes that I can study later and then come back to you with questions, that it's better fit that I'm able to understand you than if I've just sent you a survey. Even my own quiz that I'm designing, I think it's beautiful, but it's just the first step to a consulting engagement. I have to talk to you, Ken. I have to listen to you. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Ken.
Yeah, I want to add on to that from outside your head. I think in conversational storytelling research, you and Grace Ann show that genuine conversational research involves a change in the brain of the consultant. You are listening to my story and it's changing how you think about me. And that's reflected in the way that you respond to me in an authentic, personal, human way, which I detect immediately because you're present. And that changes how I think about you giving me advice, the human giving me advice. And that creates a trust environment. And then when we build on that trust, the other elements of the research that you're doing that are grounded in good research techniques for money and organizational design supplement that. And what you're giving me is a holistic, unique, personal, present consultation.
Yeah.
That's what distinguishes this from take a survey, find some simple statistics, respond with some correlations, and moving on. Now, you are engaged in a human way in the deep reality of the person you're working with. And that's why you're able to find things, but they need to be able to trust you in order to tell you. So that's what I think is happening.
Well, thank you,
Uh-oh.
Ken, for that response. I really appreciate it. Yeah, I do my best to listen. Took a lot of
It's
years to
pretty
do
good.
that. And
Your
then
best is
Ken,
pretty
every
good.
day she's saying, "You didn't hear anything I said, David. Why is that?" So it's a constant thing. I don't know if it's just a male thing, but it's a constant thing, this listening skill. Hey, Dr.
It's a
Wanda.
desire to provide a solution from your experience. You listen, other people will listen just long enough until they find something that connects to a solution they already have in mind. Then they stop listening, then give advice. But if you're going to, you got to listen all the way through the story and then into the beyond the story in order to get all of it before
Oh,
you
yeah.
start finding solutions and
Yeah.
being willing to pursue that and go down into those dark spaces. Now I can trust you because you're willing to go into that depth with me. There's not a preconceived, oh, you're just waiting for your turn to talk. No, you're actually genuinely listening. And that comes through when you're applying this technique correctly, I believe. Uh,
Oh, I switched cameras. I really love what you're saying, and I agree 100%. And Grace Ann is just going, yeah, that's true. So, Dr. Wanda, you had a question. Thank you.
I was kind of piggybacking off of Olivia's comment, wondering if the diagram you showed was really correlational studies, and I can't wait to follow up and take a look at it. Um, I did teach for 4 years applied managerial decision making, where I had to deal with teaching correlation. So, and I'll definitely let you know if I see that.
I
Um,
appreciate it. We can ask you
yeah,
and I. You know Yua, you've met her
okay,
many times. And
right. And secondly, Olivia
another
again,
version.
I related to her saying, I cannot take notes. I have to do um in the doctorate program, I was profiled as a KVA, kinesthetic visual auditory.
Oh,
And there were only two people that were, and that was me and Dr. Alana James. And so I felt like a weirdo. But what I want to say is embrace who you are and leverage your own strengths.
yeah.
As a coach, I was profiled using a DISC assessment as highly adaptable. So I've learned not to feel like a weirdo, but embrace my own strengths and work with that.
Okay. Well, let's ask Monty and Doug if they'd respond to that, because I know that they have the auditory, the visual, the kinesthetic in their inventory. And I also, Olivia and I have been trained in the neuro-linguistic programming track, so we experienced it there. Did you want to say anything, Monty or Doug?
Monty, you go ahead.
This is a test. Were you listening?
Is Monty there? I'll happily speak. Yeah. So to Dr. Wanda, yeah, on the KVA, in those circumstances, I think that's once again how we take in our information and combining what David said. I am actually looking at Zardet as David was speaking here. Everyone's speaking here. I'm kind of clicking between people and look at their styles. David also is kinesthetic, so it makes total sense that that's the way you want to take information in, and that's the way you want to process it. Building up what Ken said, some things really resonated with me. And that is, his speaking to, we listen long enough until we want to fit into a box or till we have a solution. And I think that's where active listening, going back to, first seek to be understood, first seek to understand, then be understood. Back to Covey's kind of ideas around how do we actually listen and listen with empathy and actually see it through their eyes. And that's the struggle that I saw David talking about. I think when we're listening, whatever style we want to apply there, we need to take in and align to their style. Do they want to tell the story? Do they want to actually go for the walk and do it together? Do we want to actually see it through the visuals? Take that in. That's a key way of understanding, but then we have to kind of transmorph that into reflecting that back to that person so that they're sure that we understand that, because that's where the trust builds in. So David's style, he talks about writing it down because that conveys trust. I'm actually trying to understand it. That's part of his communication technique to say, I'm taking what you're saying seriously. If it's visual, I often, especially in these moments when I'm listening to people, I actually draw diagrams because, there I'm saying, okay, hey, I've drawn this, does this kind of look what you're talking about here? But I think it's suspending what we think first, just to understand that. And I think that plays different from the introvert extrovert point of view. If they're working with an extrovert, they're going to have those cues and that building off of it. Whereas an introvert, which is what I hear, and that's what David does. But for me, it really resonated with me when he said, well, I just want to understand it and think about it, go back to my notes. And that's often what I do as well. I kind of take it in and say, okay, great. I want to make sure I have your understanding. Give me a day to think about this and just kind of come back with a few more questions, let it integrate in my own mind. So I don't know if that answers your question, David, but just listening to the discussions and watching how we interact right there is really important. The key thing is first just understand. You can't come up with a solution if you don't understand what someone's actually doing and how they see it. Once again, we got that elephant there. They're holding the leg. Well, I can see that. David uses the analogy of different rooms of, in a house for the different stories, and we're crossing across each other. Those have to be integrated to get a really good picture of everything that's going on. And so I'm gonna let I'll let someone else jump in here. Grace Ann go.
And then Monty. Grace Ann
Monty?
and Monty. Do you want to go with Monty first?
Go ahead, Grayson.
Monty, you're up.
So you caught me there because I was taking that spiral slide that you have, and I was sending it off to our graphics person in Bangalore and saying, Sophia, create something similar for this design. So I was hitting on the picture that I did of the screenshot to try to get back into the conversation. And obviously a picture of the screenshot doesn't get you back into the conversation. So
I appreciate your honesty.
Oh, yeah. I was swiping your great art there. And I said, Sophia, can you create something similar to this?
Yeah,
So
I can send you the document that's in. Yeah, that's good.
it's already in Bangalore, in this world we live in. So Wanda, way back when you did the kinesthetic, the visual, the auditory, so on and so forth. Yeah, our impressions at that point in time were this is sort of mode of operation, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there's still validity to that.
Mm-hmm.
The new system that Doug and I and our team has created gives a lot more breadth to the entire conversation. So for instance, most people are low auditory, myself included.
Mm.
And what I have learned over the years is people can be telling me things or even yelling at me, and I'm still on sort of a course headed in a certain direction and not necessarily taking into account their sage advice, their wisdom, so on and so forth. And I think that is a deficit that we as human beings have. And particularly in the data that's coming out of Zardet is most people in the sample right now are primarily kinesthetic. They're doers. Secondarily, visuals, they like to be in this environment where they can see it and they can and visually wrap their head around it. And then auditory is the third, which is not unsimilar to what you experienced years ago. But what we've been able to do is to differentiate within the construct the degree to the significance of this. So there's still this kinesthetic, visual, auditory, but everybody could be very close to the mean. As a result, they could have high access to all three. Now, myself, I am hugely visual and then way out kinesthetic and way out auditory. Hence, I was having problems with shifting gears to get back into the conversation because I was poking the wrong buttons. And that's that kinesthetic side. But that auditory side is one that we can measure how far out people are from the mean. It does not mean that people don't necessarily listen, but are they paying attention to what is coming in? Are they cognizant of what is coming in?
Yeah.
So, I mean, I can be an incredibly good listener when I turn it on, but I have to intentionally turn it on.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful.
And
Monty,
then I can.
you're demonstrating a crucial point, and I'll go to Grace Ann, that all of you coaches, consultants out there, you understand the auditory, the visual, the kinesthetic, right? From the training that we've been doing each Monday and your own training before that. I think it also relates to axiology and what's the net value thing. What's the one thing I can do here in this situation? I think I can listen, that's going to have the biggest impact if I'm listening to others instead of focusing on myself and, oh, I got to get through the presentation. I got another slide, I got to get to another appointment. I'm like tuned out from my net value. So I just wanted to give equal time, Harvey, to Axiogenics here, who I think gets at it with a different language. Grace Ann, go ahead.
Yeah, I think it really does incorporate the valuegenics and the What'sSEAM in implementing this whole program. And I would like to mention a case example that highlights, I think, the difference between traditional OD and the SEAM approach. And this is a case that actually happened with the SEAM consultants, because the other part of this is you got to have the right people in the conversation. I mean, you have to do the conversation the right way, and you have to use values and that stuff, but you have to have the right people in the room. And so at SEAM, they do both bottom up and top down. They do both process and expert. They cover both sides on those two different axes. And so the case example that I had written up years ago, the SEAM people were called in because a company noticed that their forklifts were breaking down too often. And they called in the SEAM consultants because they knew them, and they said, design some training for the forklift operators. So I used this as a case with a class of doctoral students who were all OD consultants. And I did a role play, gave them the situation that the SEAM people were faced with, asked them to role play and see what they came up with. Well, it's what Ken Long said. Everybody came up with, my approach is what's needed here. And to some extent, that's always true anyway. But so everybody wanted to design some training program for the forklift operators. The SEAM consultants in the actual case said, we can't really say that our diagnosis is we need training. There are too many questions before that to conclude that we need training. And SEAM uses what they call horivert. We interview people horizontally and vertically to analyze, and before we diagnose anything, a broad range of people and a broad number of participants, up to 50%. So, so what they found was it wasn't that the forklift operators didn't know how to maintain their machines. They knew, but circumstances had changed. They were driving the forklifts on rough ground instead of pavement, and the operators were feeling problems in their backs.
Mm-hmm.
Physically, they had issues. And that physical experience caused them to hate their machines because it was causing pain. And so, yeah, let the oil change slip. If the machine is out for a few days, I get a break, right? The classic kind of thing. So it wasn't that they needed training. It was that no one had really considered all the aspects of the situation until SEAM went in and interviewed the range of people. And the other thing then is for improvement projects, it's a bottom-up process. What does the work team want to take on? Where do they think they're going to get a payoff for their efforts? Because those payoffs are shared. So again, it's very much bottom up as well as top down.
Beautiful example, Grace Ann.
Wow.
One of the things that brings up is what in the socioeconomic approach, since we're in it for a long-term transformation, a case like that is built up and shared within the socioeconomic community because it's such a great training case because people assume it's the fault of the driver. Oh no, it's the fault of the shop mechanic. They can't keep these repaired or the machine is too old. And then you get down to it by talking to everybody and you go, well, wait a minute, there's something called pavement that we did away with a few years ago. And that 10,000 euro investment in pavement we didn't do is causing 500,000 euros a year in absenteeism, injuries, claims, bad communication. And the diagnosis there shows you that it gets down to working conditions, work organization, the 3 C's, the training they need, the time management, the strategy. So there's something off in strategy, but there's something off in the other 5 elements too. Dr. Wanda, go ahead, please.
Grace, thanks for that example with forklift operators. My son's a lineman, and long story short, he's been complaining about the disrespect of foremen to the linemen. And I thought of David, because David had shared when he was active duty that one of his superiors hit him in the back of the head. Well, that's exactly what was done with one of my son's fellow linemen who was Generation Z. So, my son went to the union and said, something needs to be done about this guy. And that was taking a risk because he should not be disrespecting the workers that way. We're trying to train, it's a dangerous job. So I just wanted to share that. And he's come to see me today. So I'm also going to share with him. I'm real proud that he did that. He had the courage to do that. But that's definitely an area of OD consulting, as I'm seeing.
Oh, yeah. And those wonderful 6 things, Wanda, are so helpful, I think, for your son. Working condition, work organizations, training, timing.
Yeah.
Strategy. I mean, it just keeps showing you they're all interconnected. You see that, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that foreman, we were informed by my son, has resigned. Yeah, he's resigned. So that is a good thing. They have a new supervisor now.
Sometimes it intervenes.
Yes.
Let's go to Olivia. Thank you, Wanda. Olivia, go.
Sure. I just want to share a quick story that I think it reminded me because of, it's not quite the same issue, but there's a great book. It's an old book called Sacred Cows Make the Best Burgers. written by Robert Krieger, and he would go into companies that were attached to something and find ways to help them reduce costs. And Taco Bell hired him because they were really losing market share. And so what he did is he was there for about 6 months, and every week he would take a group of employees and he would take them for a walk, like 5 people from all different parts of the company. And it was one of the women that was in housekeeping that said, "Why don't we make a taco pizza?" And that was what saved Pizza Hut. But it came,
Wow.
yeah, somewhere you would never imagine the idea. So it reminds me of how important it is to just talk to everybody and really listen.
Yeah,
Yeah.
get to the roots. Thank you, Olivia. Wonderful story. Doug, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to circle back on when we are talking about, the difference in communicating. And I'm so sorry that I saw Brooke Suter leave. Her work, I got a chance at ISODC, the May conference, on generative listening. And the thing that struck me, if none of you have got that, please reach out to her because in our society, and I'm talking American culture, and there's definitely blinders on in American culture, as we all know. The act of showing that I'm listening to you is often the signals, the nods, and all that, and that's a very extroverted way of indicating it. Whereas in Brooke's case with generative listening, it's giving the space and calm to allow someone to really tell their story and not really interrupting that, but holding space for them and letting that person know that, hey, I really am listening and I'm holding in that space for you. That works incredibly well with introverts. So I was just kind of giving her a plug because and I know she just left, unfortunately, this call. But it's still, those once again are the techniques to use to really show that amount of empathy that you have with people. I just wanted to show that.
Oh, thank you very much. I'd like to go and show you some slides from Ahmadine. Some people didn't see, and I didn't actually show the slides from Ahmadine. I just talked about them. So let me do that for a couple of minutes, and then we'll wrap it up here. All right. So here, I'm going to go up to the front here. And all right. So what is SEAM? If you know the four-leaf clover, you got a big shot at helping your own coaching and consulting. Who is Amandine Savall? She's this wonderful woman here. She wrote this, she edited this book on Encyclopedia Volume 5 on business storytelling and socioeconomics. She has 2 wonderful children, a wonderful husband, and the husband runs a kind of a bar cafe thing, and they live up above it. And then she runs a global empire in organizational development and consulting. She says in here, and it's co-authored in chapter 1 with Henri Savall, Veronique Zardet, Amandine, right, and Mark Bonnet, and they say we can determine that storytelling is necessary but not sufficient to elaborate a relevant representation of the object under study. And the reason they're saying that is you need to qualitatively listen to the story. You need to understand how frequently it happens and put together some frequencies of how often things are happening and kind of quantify it a little bit. She's a co-author of the book Becoming Agile. The theme is how to SEAM, right? Builds adaptability. I'll let you look at the other things, but storytelling is a tool for change. Yes, storytelling and narrative inquiry are highlighted as vital tools, but it's not the whole thing. So it's a nice reminder there. Let's go here. This is Henri Savall. He always wears a bow tie like Charlie Chaplin, and you'll never see him dressed up without that bow tie. He's invented this SEAM methodology. He's born in 1941. He's appointed Chevalier of the Legion of Honor in 2017. We're all very proud that that happened. He focused on identifying, converting hidden cost, right, into performance, mobilizing human potential. It integrates vigorous interventions with scientific data, qualifying it as a method called qualimetric, which means financial, qualitative and quantitative information together. Henri Savall founded the ECOR, and a lot of people don't know what ECOR is, so I'm going to spell it out for you. The I is for Institute, then Socioeconomic, you get that, SE, enterprises of organizations. So that's how their name. So they run that institute, and it's a wonderful thing that they're doing. There's three kind of things that we train the people in an organization and the SEAM consultants and coaches. First, the DPIE, diagnose, project, implementation, evaluation, doing a whole bunch of those and getting them out there quickly. In the B spiral, we're looking at some tools of time management. I didn't show you today, but another time. Internal, external strategic planning, the internal stakeholders, the external, having a priority action plan for what we're doing that fits in the strategic plan, competency grid, like what competencies do I have now? What do I need? What does people in my department have? What do they need, each of them? What's called a piloting logbook. It means that's where all my notes go. So it's a notebook, basically. And periodically negotiated activity contract. But that's the contract each person has. It's sort of like management by objectives, but a little bit better, where each person has a contract of what they're going to do and how that's going to help them and the bottom line and their work group, et cetera. And then the C spiral, strategic decisions, do the change management, the change technologies, then move to change procedures, then spiral out to change product and markets. Maybe you're in the wrong market, the wrong product design, changing the management system, maybe the problems at the neck of the bottle, and developing human potential all the way through. So that's the forces of change in three directions coming out of that simple four-leaf clover that has roots. We went through this already, went through all of those, and I showed you an example of a university gone. Yeah, that same university right now, by the way, I went and visited them, and the new dean of the business college, he doesn't have enough to afford to have department heads, so he has faculty being temporary department heads because there's no money to hire department heads. There's no money to hire faculty because they haven't done the kind of things in this diagram. And I explained that to him. And he says he wished they would have done that because they hired Deloitte consulting group. Consultant came out of El Paso, charged them nearly $1 million for a week's worth of advice. And it was basically spreadsheet advice. And we showed you this by Yue Kai. Her first name is Y-U-E, Yue Kai Hillen, and she's married to Mark Hillen. And that's a fun diagram. And that's the SEAM pillar of GrowthOD. By the way, a funny story. Grace Ann, can I tell this story? Grace Ann and I were at a conference. We were giving a big presentation at the Academy of Management the next day. We were going to bed, and we had a knock on the door. And there's Mark and Yue. We have something to tell you. And there are two doctoral students. They haven't done their dissertation proposal defenses yet. And they said, we're going to get married. Would you be there for us? That was great. Go ahead, Grace Ann.
I want to mention that so that periodically negotiated activity chart and all those tools that SEAM uses on companies, they use personally. Amandine always has hers, what her goals are and how she, they use it. Just like I know that Harvey and Peter and Monty and Doug use those tools in their personal lives also. So the SEAM people, they live their principles.
Yeah, that's true. We'll go have a meeting with them in Lyon, France, and they'll say, and then we'll sit down, and everybody's at the table, Henri and Amandine, Veronique, Grace Ann, and I, and they're saying, "Okay, David, you said you were going to produce this chapter, and you said you were going to have this training happening at your university in SEAM. How's that going, David?" I'm going like, "Yeah, I remember that from a year ago. I'm surprised you were listening, but they were, you know." Well, I hope you've enjoyed today, and I want to provide some time to Olivia. And Olivia, are you taking the next two sessions or just the next session?
Uh, Good question. Well, so we talked about I was going to present Glow next week, and I'm traveling, and we don't feel like we're going to be ready. And so I have another suggestion, which I'd love your everybody if you're okay with this. I've been invited to present it to a group in Romania on the 12th, and it's geared towards learning and development people and how to work with their own personal lives in a very stressful position of being, say, OD, kind of OD consultants. And I'd love to have the opportunity to practice it. So I thought if you guys were willing to let me stumble through and get a practice, I'd really appreciate it. And that would be next week at this time. It's only 45 minutes. Well, I guess it's an hour, but there's a lot of interaction. It'll be fun. I believe you'll really enjoy it.
You'd
I think
like
it's
to,
scheduled to go an hour, but there'll be time for
you'd like to
questions.
have Olivia present next week before she travels to Romania and get her.
Well, I'm not going there. I'm doing it
Oh, well, on
virtually.
Zoom. How many
Yeah.
would like that? Okay, I see a lot of hands. A lot of
Anybody opposed? I guess I'll say.
nobody opposed.
Or if you are, just don't show up. But
Thanks. Thanks for. Okay, good. Could you do one thing for us, Olivia? I know your chapter now is ready for Glow that's going to go in the Growth OD book. Can you tell
Mhm.
us a little bit about Glow? Because I would
Yeah,
love a Glow session to happen like we did today on SEAM.
that's probably on the 18th, I think. Yeah, well, I just to give you a little history, because some of you don't know me, I was a data scientist for 35 years, but when I landed in the corporate world, I just been an earth mom and a spiritual seeker, and I found the culture to be really like scary at that point. I was in my early, I guess my late 30s when I got a master's in statistics of all things, and ended up working for this really hostile credit card bank. And so it became a passion of mine to understand why that happened. And then as I became more of a consultant, I'd work in a lot of different companies, and I noticed the ones that treated their people well would do better. And so I just started digging in, and I was interested in spirituality and quantum physics. And I started seeing connections. So I wrote a book in 2009. And basically, my premise for Glow is that we are these interconnected beings. And I was thinking, David, when you were saying how you're taking stories and creating rapport. So our mirror neurons are syncing up. There's like science behind all of these things that we're doing when we build rapport and when we ask questions and deeply listen. And so what Glow does is it kind of gets into the science enough to get you inspired to really for the people who may be questioning, because we're going to ultimately get into stuff that helps people feel better. And a lot of left brainers, people in the data science world, and Carl's on here, he knows that a lot of people are very left brain and they kind of dismiss anything heart centered. And I'm saying that's where the juice is. And now with the millennials wanting meaning in their work, it's even more important that we build cultures of love and gratitude. So GLOW stands for gratitude, love for organizational wisdom. And we want to go into organizations and help them understand why this is important, giving them a little bit of science, and then take them into experiences where they can feel love defined by caring and compassion, and then a gratitude practice that really helps people connect and feel appreciated. Is
Thank
that
you.
good?
Thank
Yeah.
you. Let's just do our checkout. We got 1 minute, so let's keep the comments short, but I'm grateful to you, Olivia, for getting your chapter done and for taking on next week and the week after. And then after that, Almadine Savall. Thank you. Grace Ann, your turn.
I'm I'm grateful that people care. Thank you all.
And Jack, would you go next?
I'm grateful for the topic of listening and that all of us are so cognizant of listening and how important that skill is for us and our clients. And I'll pass it over to Carl.
Thank you. I'll tag on to that too. I love the topic of listening too. I think I talked sometimes the work I'm doing with Olivia is like we call it a soft skill, not because it's easy, because it's delicate. You know, if it's easy, we all be good at it. So we're all working on it. So preparing our mind and heart to listen. I think we talked about that a lot today, so I'm kind of excited to share some of the work I'm doing with Olivia on that topic. But I think we're so much on the same page, but really being intentional of being present for us, another human being, which makes all the difference in the world. So thanks for all of you for your active listening and engagement. And thank you, David and Grace, for helping me understand SEAM a little bit more, than I did prior to today. I really get in the essence of it, what's behind it. So thank you for that.
And let's go to Monty.
I appreciate the conversation today on hidden costs and the world we're living right now in from the standpoint of Doge and cutting costs and maybe the intentional and unintentional consequences.
I'm calling roll here, so go to Harvey.
Yep. I'm just grateful to be a part of this and have the opportunity to learn from all of you. Thank you.
Well, Dr. Wanda.
I am grateful that my rebranding strategy seems to be working. I've taken the plunge. I've started my second book. I have a publisher, and I'm focusing on a storyteller's narrative. My enlightened experience is based on 4 trips to Sierra Leone, West Africa, and how that connects with Western ways of knowing. So, and this hidden cost webinar helped me reflect on a lot of the things that rooted me in who I am as a scholar practitioner.
Dr. Joy, or Joy Harris. I'm calling you doctor, but Joy Harris.
David, I am grateful that this time period is for learning as well as sharing. I enjoy this time every Monday morning. So thank you so much for that.
Okay. Jim Rogers, how does this help photography?
Well, I guess I'm grateful for all the talent and ideas that are shared and that I learn a little bit every time I attend this group. And I guess there's a trust that it'll help me in my path, my process of life. And so thank you all.
Thank you. Ken Long, go ahead.
I'm grateful for friends, safe spaces, shared trust, true stories, and I'm optimistic going forward.
Jack Rody, did we get your comment yet?
You have me already.
Okay, let me go to Carol Gorlick.
I'm grateful to have found kindred spirits and the affirmation that taking notes is valuable.
Tom?
And Tom, you get to wrap it up.
Oh, thank you, everyone. I enjoyed this, David. I'm happy you talked about SEAM because I didn't know a whole lot about it. And I really see that I'm so grateful that I think we're, as a group, putting together these magnificent minds. And we're not millennials. Most of us is always on here, so she's a millennial, but we've got the ability to really impact the world. Not only the business world, but everything that we're doing, I believe, will truly help the world. And I'm proud to be part of the team, and I'm honored to be part of the team. So thank you, David. Thank you, everyone.
And Ken Long, do you have a parting message for us?
Sure. Keep marching. Let's go. Action. Let's get results.
Thank you, everybody. It's been a real honor, and we look forward to Amadine coming, giving us the details.
Yes,
David?
Oh, Amin. Well, I didn't see you on the screen. Amin, hello, hello. How are you?
I just came back. I had the opportunity to meet in person Carol. It was so nice. I was so amazed to see Carol. It was she gave us a lot of experience, me and another student at that time. But yes, I would like to give you my takeaway. I hope that people they will realize that we need not to be individualist, but collectivist, much more collectivism. And the words tend to be much more materialist. And yes, I'm still learning, David, and everyone to learn to listen and learn to speak last, like Nelson Mandela.
On that note,
Thank you.
that's something Henri Savall does. Every time I've seen him in an engagement, everybody will be showing off what they know about SEAM and how it's going to help this doctoral dissertation or this project that they're talking about. And he'll wait till the last second and go up and draw something on the board and have 3 or 4 words, and that's his big moment. He's like a Zen monk. Anyway, thank you all for.
And also, I want to recognize the people who have note takers, and Paul was not able. He's been here, but not able to, because of technical difficulties, to speak or hear everything. So,
Paul will send
thank
us
you.
an email after this because
Yeah.
he's a good researcher. All right, thank you all. And
Just want to say something, David, please. First, I met Duncan over there, and secondly, they were talking about one of your article. I said, "Wow, David Boje is international." When they were talking about creativity in learning in languages, something like that. I don't remember. I just go straight, and they put one of your article. I just take a photo of it. I will send it to you anyway. Thank you so much.
Okay, I hope I can remember which one it is, but thanks. The photo will help. Well, all right, next week, Olivia. Now, tomorrow on our Tuesday sessions, if you go to those, Amadine Savall, or Amadine, not Savall. No, back up. Sabine Trofimo, that's it. Sabine Trofimo will be here talking about um, Martin Heidegger and mindfulness. Since mindfulness is a big topic that we're into, it'll be about that. So she's going to have the German translation of the book and teach us about how particular German words are being misused by Heidegger and causing us a misinterpretation in English, I'm sure. So,
Hey, David, can I just say that, David, you asked me to help manage the invitation. So you'll get an invitation from my email for tomorrow in Thinkment and then ongoing. So you'll probably get some from both of us for a while.
yeah,
But
there was a petition that went around. I don't know if you all signed it, that David Boje should stop doing invites to meetings because he screws it up.
it's not true.
I'll see you.